The galaxy was old. It had seen empires rise and fall like waves on a shore. It had watched species evolve from simple creatures into beings that could bend space itself. And in all those billions of years, the galaxy had learned one truth. Power was everything. The Galactic Concord ruled the known universe. 47 species sat at its table, each one ancient, each one powerful in their own way. The Velith could think faster than light itself. Their minds processed information at speeds that made other species seem frozen in time. The Corax were warriors born with natural armor that could stop plasma fire. They had conquered 3 star systems and held them for 10,000 years. The Draven lived for centuries and remembered everything they ever learned. And then there were the humans. They had arrived 300 years ago. Crawling out from a small blue planet on the edge of nowhere, they were soft. They were fragile. They lived for barely a century before their bodies simply stopped working. They had no natural weapons, no special abilities, no ancient wisdom passed down through millennia. The Concord looked at humanity and saw nothing worth. Respecting Admiral Unipark stood on the bridge of the diplomatic vessel Dawn's Light and watched the stars pass by. She was 53 years old, with gray streaks in her black hair and lines around her eyes from years of forced smiles. She commanded Earth's diplomatic fleet, which was really just a fancy name for 12 ships that carried ambassadors from place to place. Her first officer, a young man named Deho, approached her with a tablet in his hands. His face was troubled. "The tribunal rejected our petition again," he said quietly. Yuna did not turn from the window. "Which one?" "The trade agreement with the outer colonies." Lord Varric said our offer was... He paused, reading from the tablet. Double quotes, ... amusing, but ultimately pointless. Like watching insects build a hill. Yuna's jaw tightened, but her voice remained calm. "File it with the others." Deho hesitated. "Admiral, this is the 14th rejection this year. At some point, we need to be patient." She finally turned to face him. Her eyes were tired but steady. "The Concord has existed for longer than our entire civilization. They don't see us as equals. They may never see us as equals. But we keep trying. We keep smiling. We keep asking why." It was a simple question, but it carried the weight of 3 centuries of humiliation. Yuna was quiet for a long moment before she answered. "Because the alternative is war. And war with the Concord would destroy us." On the capital world of the Velith, Ambassador Han Jay walked through halls that made him feel like an ant crawling through a cathedral. Everything was tall here. The ceilings stretched so high they vanished into mist. The doorways were built for beings twice his size. Even the chairs were designed to make him feel small. He had spent 40 years in this place. 40 years of bowing. 40 years of being ignored. 40 years of watching his petitions get thrown away like garbage. Today was trying again. The High Tribunal sat in a circle of floating platforms, each one carrying a representative of the major species. Lord Varric of the Velith occupied the highest platform, his long silver body coiled like a snake made of liquid metal. His eyes had no pupils, just endless pools of white that seemed to look through everything they saw. "You may speak human," Varric said. His voice echoed through the chamber, amplified by technology that Han did not understand. Han bowed deeply. "Great lords of the tribunal, I come before you once again to request formal recognition for the human colony worlds. We ask only for the same protections given to other member species. The right to defend our borders. The right to be heard in matters that concern our people." Varric made a sound that might have been laughter. "You ask for the rights of a civilization, but you have not earned them. The Corax earned their place through 10,000 years of conquest. The Draven earned theirs through wisdom accumulated over countless generations. What have humans done? We have survived," Han said simply. "So have bacteria." Varric waved one of his many limbs dismissively. "Your request is denied. Again, perhaps in another century, when your species has matured, we will consider it." Han's hands trembled at his sides, but his face remained neutral. He bowed again and walked out of the chamber. Outside, he found a quiet corner and let himself breathe. His assistant, A young woman named Jian was waiting for him. "The same as always?" she asked. "The same as always." Gian looked at the tribunal doors with anger in her eyes. "How much longer do we have to do this? How much longer do we have to let them treat us like nothing?" Han placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "As long as it takes. We are not ready for confrontation. Will we ever be?" Han was quiet for a moment. Then he said something that Jian would remember for the rest of her life. "We are always ready. We choose not to be. There is a difference." Back on Earth, in the deep underground facilities that no alien had ever seen, Admiral Park's older brother worked in silence. His name was Yun Seok, and officially, he was a retired engineer who spent his days gardening. Unofficially, he led a team of 3,000 scientists who had been working on the same project for 200 years. The project had no name. It existed in no records. Even most humans didn't know about it. Yun-SEO stood before a massive display, showing blueprints for ships that could move faster than anything in the Concorde, weapons that could crack planets, defense systems that could make Earth untouchable. His assistant, Minji, approached him with coffee. "The new calculations are complete. We could begin production within 5 years." I took the coffee but didn't drink it. "Not yet, sir. With respect, we've been saying not yet for generations. We'll keep saying it until we have no other choice." He looked at her with eyes that had seen too much. "The moment we use these weapons, we become something different. Something we can never take back. I hope that day never comes." Minji looked at the blueprints. Ships of war. Instruments of destruction. All of it waiting, sleeping, like a dragon that hadn't yet opened its eyes. "What if it does come?" she asked. "What if they push us too far?" Young Seok turned back to the display. His voice was barely a whisper. "Then the galaxy will learn why humans are the only species that has a word for revenge." The stars continued to spin. The Concorde continued to laugh at the small, soft creatures from the edge of nowhere, and humanity continued to smile, to bow, to wait. But beneath the surface, in the hearts of 12 billion humans spread across 100 worlds, something was growing. It was patient. It was quiet. And it was very, very angry. All it needed was a spark. New Busan was a beautiful world. It sat at the edge of human space, far from the great highways of galactic trade. The Concorde had called it worthless, a small planet with thin soil and cold winters. They had given it to the humans like someone throwing scraps to a dog, but humans had a gift for making homes in places nobody else wanted in 200 years. They had turned the worthless rock into a garden. 12 million people lived there now. Farmers grew crops in greenhouses that stretched for kilometers. Engineers built cities that blended with the mountains. Children played in parks where alien trees had been carefully planted to survive the cold. Dr. Sora Kim loved this world. She had been born on Earth, but New Busan was her home now. Every morning, she walked through the research center where she studied the native plants. And every evening, she came home to her small house near the river where her husband, Tae, waited with dinner. Their daughter, Mina, was 7 years old. She had her mother's smile and her father's quiet nature. She liked to collect rocks and draw pictures of the strange birds that lived in the mountains. Her room was full of her artwork, messy and colorful and full of joy. On the day everything changed, Mina was drawing a picture of their family. 3 figures holding hands under a yellow sun. She would never finish it. The Korak ships arrived without warning. There were 40 of them, great black vessels that blocked out the stars like a cloud of death. They entered orbit around New Busan and sent a single message to the planet below. This world now belongs to the Korak's empire. All humans must leave within 48 hours. Those who remain will be removed by force. Governor Sunmin received the message in his office. He was an old man, gentle and kind, the sort of leader who knew every family in the capital by name. His hands shook as he read the words. "They can't do this," his aide said. "This is our world. The Concorde recognized our claim 300 years ago." The Concorde changed their mind. Sugmin's voice was hollow. "I received a message from Ambassador Han this morning. The tribunal voted to give our planet to the Koraks. They need the minerals in our mountains. Our people were not considered important enough to consult. What do we do? Sung-min looked out his window at the city he had helped build, at the schools and hospitals and homes, at the children walking to class, unaware that their world had just been sold. We refuse, he said quietly. We stay, sir. They'll kill us. Maybe. The old governor turned to face his aide. But some things are worth dying for. This is our home. We built it from nothing. We raised our children here. We buried our parents here. I will not abandon it because some alien empire wants our rocks. The message went out to every human on New Busan. Stay or go. Fight or flee. The choice was theirs. 90-8% chose to stay. Tae heard the news while teaching his morning class. The children were too young to understand what was happening, so he kept teaching. He helped them with their math. He read them stories. He pretended everything was normal while his heart broke inside his chest. When school ended, he rushed home. Sora was already there, packing bags with trembling hands. We have to go, she said. Tae, we have to take Mina and go. Where? He grabbed her hands, made her stop. Where would we go? Every ship leaving the planet is full. There's no room, and we find room. We bribe someone. We steal a ship if we have to. Sora, his voice cracked. There's no way out. I've been checking the networks all day. The Koraks have blocked the evacuation routes. They're not letting anyone leave. Sora's face went pale. What? It's a trap. They never meant to let us evacuate. They just wanted to give themselves an excuse. From the other room, Mina called out, Mommy, Daddy, why is everyone scared? Sora closed her eyes. When she opened them, tears were running down her face. But her voice was steady when she answered. Come here, baby. Mommy and Daddy need to tell you something. They spent their last night together. They told Mina they loved her. They held her while she slept. They watched the stars through the window and tried to pretend that tomorrow would never come at dawn. The Koraks began their attack. They did not target military installations because New Busan had none. They did not target government buildings because they didn't care about the government. They targeted the civilian districts, the homes, the schools, the hospitals. The plasma fire fell like rain. Sora grabbed Mina and ran. Tae was right behind them, screaming for them to hurry. The street was full of people running, crying, dying. Buildings collapsed. The air filled with smoke and ash. They were almost at the shelter when the second wave hit. Tae saw the flash of light. He felt the heat. He heard Sora scream his name, and then there was nothing. When he awoke, he was buried in rubble. His ears were ringing. He couldn't feel his legs. He tried to call out, but his voice was just a croak. Rescue workers found him 3 days later. They pulled him from the ruins of what had been his street, his neighborhood, his life. My wife, he whispered. My daughter. Where are they? The rescue worker couldn't meet his eyes. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. 4 million humans died that day. 1/3 of New Busan's population erased in 16 minutes. The Koraks didn't even land troops. They just burned the planet from orbit and then sent a message to the Concord saying the infestation had been cleared. The footage spread across the galaxy within hours. Security cameras had captured everything. Families running, children screaming, people turning to ash in the middle of the street, and one image became burned into the memory of every human who saw it. A little girl holding her mother's hand, looking up at the sky with confusion in her eyes. 1 second before the light took them both, Mina Kim, 7 years old. She liked rocks and drawing and strange birds. She never finished her picture. On Earth, Admiral Una Park watched the footage in her office. She watched it once, twice, 3 times. Her officers waited outside, afraid to enter. When she finally opened the door, her face was calm. But her eyes were different. The patience was gone. The diplomacy was gone. Something cold and terrible had taken their place. Send a message to every human vessel in the galaxy, she said. We're done asking for permission. The dragon had opened its eyes, and now it was hungry. The galaxy had expected anger. They had expected protests, demands for justice, perhaps even some small acts of violence. What they did not expect was silence. For 3 weeks after New Busan, humanity said nothing. Their ambassadors withdrew from every station. Their trading ships returned to port. Their communication channels went dark. It was as if 12 billion people had simply decided to stop talking to the rest of the universe. Lord Varric of the Valeth found this amusing. They are hiding, he told the tribunal. Like frightened animals? The Corax have shown them their place, and now they understand. The Corax High Commander, a massive creature named General Breck, laughed at the reports. Perhaps now they will learn to obey. We did the galaxy a favor. Those insects were becoming annoying. Not everyone was laughing. Ambassador Kijan of the Draven had lived for 800 years. He had seen species rise and fall. He had watched empires crumble from within, and he had learned to recognize the moments before a storm. Something is wrong, he said quietly to his aide. This silence is not fear. This is something else. What do you mean? Kichon's ancient eyes grew distant. I have studied human history. They are strange creatures. They fight among themselves constantly. War after war after war. But there is a pattern. When they fight each other, they make noise. They argue. They threaten. They negotiate. He paused. When they go quiet, it means they have stopped fighting each other. It means they have found something to fight together. You think they will attack the Corax? Kijin shook his head slowly. I think the Corax are already dead. They just don't know it yet. 3 weeks and 4 days after New Busan, the first Corax outpost went dark. It was a small station on the edge of their territory. One moment it was there. The next, it was atoms scattered across space. General Breck dismissed it as an accident. Equipment failure. Nothing to worry about. The second outpost fell 2 days later. Then the third, then the fourth. Within a week, the entire outer ring of Corax territory had been erased. And still, humanity said nothing. Captain Wu Sung-ho stood on the bridge of the battleship Crimson Dawn, watching the latest target burn. He was a small man with a thin face and eyes that seemed too old for his body. Before the war, he had been a transport captain, hauling cargo between colonies. Now, he commanded a fleet of ships that had not existed 6 months ago. His tactical officer, Lieutenant Hannah Yoon, approached with a status report. The station is destroyed. No survivors. No distress signals sent. Good. Wu's voice was flat. Move to the next target. Sir, Hannah hesitated. Our scouts report a Corax battle fleet moving to intercept us. 300 ships. They outnumber us 5-1. Wu turned to look at her. I know. Should we withdraw? Wait for reinforcements? No, sir. With respect, this is suicide. Wu was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, Lieutenant, do you know why I volunteered for this mission? Hannah shook her head. I had a brother on New Busan. He was a farmer. He had 3 children. The youngest was 4 years old. Wu's voice did not waver, but something dark moved behind his eyes. They didn't evacuate because they believed the Concorde would protect them. They trusted the system. They thought the rules would keep them safe. He turned back to the display showing the approaching enemy fleet. I don't care if we're outnumbered. I don't care if we all die. I'm going to make sure that every Corax in this galaxy knows what happens when you touch our families. The Battle of Corax Reach lasted 14 hours. It should have lasted 14 minutes. The Corax had superior numbers, superior firepower, and 10,000 years of military experience. They lost everything. Human ships moved in patterns that made no sense. They attacked from impossible angles. They used asteroids as weapons, slingshotting them into enemy formations. They hacked into Corax systems and turned their own defenses against them. When their ships were damaged, they didn't retreat. They accelerated into the enemy, turning their vessels into missiles. The Corax had never seen anything like it. They fought with honor, with strategy, with all the wisdom of their ancient traditions. The humans fought like they had nothing to lose. Because they didn't, by the end, 240 Corax ships were destroyed. The remaining 60 fled in panic. Human losses were heavy, nearly half the fleet, but the survivors didn't mourn. They simply refueled, rearmed, and moved to the next target. Back in Concord space, the Tribunal watched in growing horror. This was not a war. This was an extermination. Human fleets appeared everywhere at once. They struck supply lines, destroyed shipyards, and collapsed entire defensive networks. They didn't negotiate. They didn't take prisoners. They didn't respond to surrender signals. General Breck sent a desperate message to the Tribunal: "Stop them, please. We surrender. We will pay any price. Just make them stop." Admiral Unipark's response was broadcast across every frequency in the galaxy. Her voice was calm, almost gentle, which somehow made it more terrifying. "You killed 4 million of our people. You burned our children while they slept. You laughed about it afterward." She paused. "There is no price you can pay. There is no deal you can make. There is no surrender we will accept. You wanted to show the galaxy that humans could be erased without consequence. Now we will show the galaxy what happens to those who try." Within 6 months, the Corax Empire was gone, not defeated. Gone. Their homeworld was a radioactive wasteland. Their colonies were captured and given to the species they had oppressed over the millennia. Their culture, their history, their very identity was erased from the stars. 10,000 years of civilization, ended by a species they had called insects. In the final days, as Corax refugees fled through space looking for anywhere that would take them, a young Corax officer transmitted a message to anyone who would listen. We thought they were weak because they were soft. We thought they were cowards because they chose peace. We were wrong. They were not choosing peace because they feared war. They were choosing peace because they knew what they were capable of. They knew what lived inside them, and they were afraid of it. He paused, his voice breaking. Now we know too. Now the whole galaxy knows. Never touch their children. Never harm their families. Because if you do, they will become something that cannot be stopped. Something that cannot be reasoned with. Something that will not rest until you are dust in memory. May the stars forgive us for waking it. The transmission ended. The Corax officer was never heard from again, and across the galaxy. 46 remaining species looked at humanity with new eyes, not with contempt anymore, with terror. The tribunal chamber had never been so full. Every species in the Concord had sent representatives. Every platform was occupied. The air hummed with fear and whispered conversations. For the first time in 10,000 years, the Concord did not know what to do. Lord Varric stood at the center of the chamber, his silver body coiled tight with tension. He no longer looked amused. He no longer looked superior. He looked like what he was, a creature facing something he did not understand. "We must act," he declared, his voice echoing through the massive space. "The humans have become a threat to galactic stability. If we do not stop them now, who knows what they will do next?" The Draven ambassador, Kedjan, spoke from his platform. "And how do you propose we stop them?" The Corax had the 4th largest military in the Concord. "They are gone. Not just defeated, Lord Varric. Gone. Erased. In 6 months, then we combine our forces. All of us. Together. Surely we can? Surely we can what?" Another voice cut through the chamber. It belonged to Ambassador Borishin, who stood on the human platform for the first time. "Attack them like the Corax did. Burn their colonies. Kill their children. Please, Lord Varric, please try." The chamber went silent. Bora was not like the ambassadors who had come before her. Hanjay had been patient, careful, diplomatic. Bora was none of those things. She had lost her entire family on New Busan, her parents, her siblings, her nieces and nephews. 17 people who had gathered for a birthday celebration the day the plasma fell. She had nothing left to lose, and it showed in every line of her face, every word from her mouth. "For 300 years we came to you with open hands," she said, her voice carrying across the chamber without amplification. "We asked for nothing but respect. We offered friendship, trade, cooperation, and what did you give us? She paused, letting the question hang in the air. You gave us mockery. You called us insects. You gave our worlds away like they were toys to be shared among children. You let the Corax murder for 1,000,000 of our people, and then you did nothing. Her eyes swept across the platforms. Some of you even expressed approval. I have the recordings. If anyone would like to hear them? Several representatives shifted uncomfortably on their platforms. So let me be very clear about what happens next. Bora stepped forward to the edge of her platform. Humanity is no longer asking for permission. We are no longer requesting a seat at your table. We are telling you how things will be. Lord Varric's voice turned cold. You dare to threaten the Concord? I'm not threatening anyone. Bora smiled, and there was no warmth in it. I'm making a promise. Any species that attacks human civilians for any reason will face the same fate as the Corax. Not punishment. Not sanctions. Extinction.
Oh.
The chamber erupted in chaos. Representatives shouted at each other. Some demanded action. Others demanded calm. Kijan sat quietly on his platform, watching Bora with ancient, thoughtful eyes. When the noise finally died down, the Velith representative for military affairs spoke. Your position is untenable. You cannot threaten the entire Concord. We have resources you cannot imagine. Weapons that could show me. Everyone stopped. Bora's voice was quiet but clear. Show me these weapons. Use them right now. Attack Earth. Destroy our colonies. End the human threat once and for all. She spread her arms wide. What are you waiting for? Silence. That's what I thought. She lowered her arms. You see, the problem isn't whether you could destroy us. Maybe you could. I honestly don't know. The problem is what we would do before you finished. She pressed a button on her platform, and holographic displays appeared throughout the chamber. Ships, weapons, soldiers, numbers, and statistics that made even the Velith pause. This is what we built while we were smiling at you. While we were bowing. While we were pretending to be harmless. 17,000 warships. Weapons that can crack planets. Soldiers who have been training since birth. All of it hidden. All of it waiting. Because we knew this day would come. Kijan leaned forward on his platform. You've prepared for war while pursuing peace? We hoped for peace. We prepared for war. Humans have a saying. Hope for the best, plan for the worst. Bora turned to face him. You are the oldest species in this chamber, Ambassador Kijan. You have seen more history than any of us can imagine. Tell me, have you ever seen a species that didn't prepare for its own defense? Kijan was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, No, I have not. Then you understand why we did what we did. And you understand why we will do it again, if we have to. The tribunal session lasted for 14 hours. There were arguments, threats, and promises. But in the end, the result was never really in doubt. The Concord could fight humanity. Perhaps they could even win. But the cost would be unimaginable. The destruction would scar the galaxy for millennia. And for what? To avenge a species that had murdered children? One by one, the representatives voted. Not to attack humanity. Not to sanction them, but to accept them. Fully and completely. Equal members of the Concord, with all the rights and protections that entitled, Lord Varric voted against it. He was the only one. After the session ended, Kijan approached Bora in the corridor outside. His ancient face was unreadable. You played a dangerous game today, he said. What if we had called your bluff? Bora looked at him steadily. It wasn't a bluff. You would have gone to war with the entire Concord. We would have destroyed the entire Concord. She said it simply, like she was stating the weather, or died trying. Either way, the species that killed our children would not have survived to celebrate. Kijan was silent for a long moment. Then he did something strange. He bowed to her. A small bow, almost imperceptible, but real. I have lived for 800 years, he said quietly. I have met thousands of species. Warriors, scholars, artists, conquerors. I have never met one that frightened me. He straightened and met her eyes. Until today, Bora did not smile. Good. Remember that feeling. Make sure your people remember it too. Because if anyone ever touches our children again, you'll discover that what we did to the Corax was mercy. She walked away, leaving the ancient ambassador standing alone in the corridor. Behind him, through the great windows of the tribunal hall, the stars burned cold and distant. The galaxy had learned its lesson. Now it was time to remember. 5 years had passed since the burning of New Busan, 5 years since humanity had risen from the ashes of their dead, and taught the galaxy a lesson written in fire and blood. The universe was different now. Everyone could feel it. The Corax were a memory. Their worlds had been given to the species they had conquered over 10,000 years of empire. Slaves had become free. Oppressed peoples had built new homes on the ruins of their oppressors. It was justice, of a sort. Cold justice. The kind that leaves no room for mercy. The galactic concord had changed too. The old arrogance was gone. When human ships entered a system, no one made jokes about insects anymore. When human ambassadors spoke at the tribunal, no one laughed. The galaxy had learned respect the hard way. The kind of respect that comes from fear. Dr. Jin Ara stood before the new tribunal, preparing to give the speech she had been working on for months. She was a xenanthropologist, a scientist who studied the cultures of different species. For years, she had tried to explain humanity to aliens who didn't want to understand. Now finally, they were ready to listen. The chamber was full. Every species had sent their best representatives, not just politicians, but scholars, scientists, philosophers. They wanted to understand. They needed to understand. Because the question that haunted them was simple. Why? Why had humans reacted so extremely? Why had they destroyed an entire civilization over a single attack? Why were they so different from every other species in the galaxy? Jin began to speak. I know what you want to know. You want to understand why we did what we did? Why we burned the Corax from existence? Why we threatened to do the same to anyone else who crossed us? She paused, looking around the chamber. The answer is simpler than you might think. She pressed a button, and a holographic image appeared in the center of the chamber. It was a human child, sleeping peacefully in a bed, covered with soft blankets. The image was so ordinary, so gentle, that several representatives looked confused. This, Jin said, is what you attacked. Not our military, not our government, not our economy or our pride. You attacked this. She let the image hang in the air for a long moment. Every species protects its young. This is basic biology. The survival instinct demands it. But humans. She shook her head slowly. Humans do not simply protect their children. We worship them. She changed the image. Now it showed human history. Parents shielding children during disasters. Soldiers carrying babies through war zones. Ordinary people risking their lives for children they had never met. In human culture, children represent everything we hope for. Every dream we never achieved. Every future we will never see. When we look at a child, we do not just see a small human. We see possibility. We see tomorrow. We see the reason we wake up in the morning and keep fighting against a universe that does not care if we live or die. The chamber was completely silent. You killed 4 million of our people on New Busan. That was terrible. But you also killed 1 million children, 1 million futures, 1 million tomorrows. Jin's voice hardened. That is what you could not understand. That is why we burned your allies to ash and scattered them across the stars. Not because we are violent, not because we enjoy killing, but because you touched the one thing we hold sacred above all else. Lord Varric spoke from his platform, his voice uncertain. We have young as well. All species do. We protect them, care for them, raise them to adulthood. How is this different? Jin nodded, as if she had expected the question. Let me ask you something, Lord Varric. If someone killed a Valith child, what would you do? We would demand justice, punishment for the guilty parties, compensation for the family, and if justice was denied, If the killer was protected by powerful allies, if the Concord itself said the death was acceptable, Varric hesitated. We would protest, seek diplomatic solutions, perhaps withdraw from certain treaties. That's the difference. Jin smiled, but there was no humor in it. A human in that situation would not protest. They would not seek diplomatic solutions. They would kill everyone involved in the decision. Everyone who protected the killer. Everyone who stood by and did nothing. And then they would kill everyone who might do something similar in the future, just to make sure the message was clear. She let that sink in. We are not more moral than you. We are not more loving. We simply have a different relationship with our young. To us, harming a child is not a crime. It is an abomination. It is the one act that can never be forgiven, never be forgotten, never be balanced by any amount of justice or compensation. And when someone commits that abomination against us, we do not respond as a civilization. We respond as parents, as mothers and fathers and brothers and sisters. We respond with every dark impulse in our souls, every violent instinct we have spent millennia trying to suppress. Ambassador Kedron spoke softly. You are saying that you cannot control this response, that it is beyond reason. Jin shook her head. No, I am saying we choose not to control it. Because if we did, if we let ourselves become reasonable about the murder of children, we would lose something essential about who we are. We would become like you. She met Qichen's ancient eyes. No offense intended. Qichen almost smiled. None taken. Jin ended her presentation with a final image. It was the memorial on New Busan, the black stone wall with 4 million names carved into its surface. The image showed a man standing before the wall, his head bowed, flowers in his hands. His name is Tae Kim. He lost his wife and daughter in the attack. For 5 years, he has visited this memorial every single day, rain or shine, sick or healthy. He comes here to remember what was taken from him. Jin's voice grew quiet, and every time he leaves, he walks past the new families who have moved to New Busan, the children playing in the memorial gardens, the babies being carried by their parents. He watches them, and he smiles, because he knows they are safe now. He knows that no one will ever hurt them, not while humanity stands watch. She turned off the display. That is why we did what we did. Not for revenge. Not for justice. For them. For the children who are still alive, still playing, still dreaming about tomorrow. She looked around the chamber one last time. So remember this lesson. Teach it to your young. Write it in your histories and your laws and your sacred texts, because we will not teach it again. The next species that harms our children will not get a warning. They will simply disappear, and the universe will go on without them. The chamber remained silent long after she finished. On New Busan. As the sun set over the rebuilt city, Tae Kim placed fresh flowers at his daughter's name. He was old now, his hair white, his body tired, but his eyes were clear and his hands were steady. His second wife, Yoon, stood nearby with their grandchildren. Little ones with bright eyes and curious smiles, who knew nothing of the fire that had come before. Tae traced Mina's name with his fingertip. They remember now, he said softly. The whole galaxy remembers. No one will hurt them. Not ever again. He stepped back and watched his grandchildren play in the fading light. Their laughter echoed across the memorial, mixing with the whisper of wind through the names of the dead. Above them, the stars began to appear. Millions of lights in the darkness, each one a sun with planets of its own. Worlds full of aliens who had learned, finally, what it meant to cross humanity. The galaxy watched and remembered and was afraid. But on New Busan, children played, and that was enough.